Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Fiberglass Fridays. And what we're going to talk about quick first this morning, it's a slide out glass shell. Something a little different. It doesn't always give you the opportunity to do it, but once in a while you do have the chance, and I'll just show you what I mean. We looked at this last week. I think I just had these first two sections done. This is a big log planter, and I put the plug inside there. And before I forget, I just want to say a special hello to Kayla and Paul. Paul, get off your butt and make some popcorn and sit down for another Fiberglass Friday. So okay, back to watching. Okay, so I'll just show you quick. Here's the two outside pieces from this far side. Now I'm going to show you, spin her around here so you can see a little better. So you can see that. Now normally you'd say, wow, that's like a crazy lock-on problem, because you've got this stump piece coming out the side, you've got an indent on here, and same on this end here. So you'd never be able to pull that off. So what this gives you the opportunity is a slide out. So you give it a little wiggle and you pull it out of the end, and then this piece too, you're gonna knock it out that way. And that gives you, it just cuts down on the amount of pieces that you have to do. Like you could make a smaller section here for the ends and another smaller section here, but this still gives you the opportunity to do a two-piece. So as you can see, it just slides right back in. Slides right back in. And it's good to go. So it doesn't always arise that you have that opportunity to make a piece like this, but when you do, just take a really good look before you get started. Like really plan your model out in your glass before you get going. Take a good long look at it, figure it out 2-3 different ways, and then before you get started. So, and I just want to show you, the plug, whoops, it's in the right way. Is the plug in here. You can see how nice and easy that comes out. Perfect little baby powder on there to help it slide in and out. If you have, sometimes it gets a little tight, you can fix that by just sanding the outside shell of the plug. Go over it a couple times with your sander and it'll smooth out any little lumps and bumps that are maybe hanging up inside your model there. So, but yeah, this turned out really nice. I'm glad how it turned out. The glass on it, I'm happy, and I'm happy with the plug. So okay, now we're going to move along. I'm just going to go over and I'm going to grab the camera and I'm going to show you a few things that I got on the go, so you don't have to look at my face anymore. Thank goodness. Paul, don't make any comments. Okay, just give me 1 second. I'll grab the camera. I'm a one-man band here, so you have to bear with me while I... Sometimes my daughter used to help me shoot, but she's so busy right now she doesn't have time to help. So, and I don't have time to do the big long edited versions anymore. No, not right now, maybe later in the summer, but here we go. You can see what's on the table. This morning the big girl's coming. I'm down to about my last 3 or 4 models now. Not true, I've got some small doubles in the other room. There are about 8 of them, but I can do those in a month or so. I can start on those guys, models for sales. So there's the big Venus. She might look familiar to some of you because I did one a year ago, and this is a redo. This has been on the model since about this time last year, the rubber. So I'm anticipating a nice grip on the model there. I could work up a sweat getting that off when the time comes. So probably by next Friday you'll see some glass on her already. So this is a Birdbath Base, is all finished, and this big pillar you see down there is all finished, done up. What I want to talk to you about these larger pieces, when we're getting into this big stuff, and like on here too, is these bottom flanges. We've talked about them before. When this is upside down, you're pouring, you're gonna move it around by picking it up by this flange, by that top flange. Well, bottom flange, but it'll be up on the top. So you want them to be really beefy. Now, I don't know if you can get a good look at the thick. I cut that off this morning so you can take a good look at it. So there's the raw piece there. So it's about a 1/4 inch or about 5 mil thick. And you need it, for these big ones, you need it about that thickness. Just because you're looking, when this thing's done, it's probably going to be in the neighborhood of 65 to 70 kilos, this guy. So you got a bit of weight, right? So you don't want, if you're picking it up to move it or picking it up to lean it down or what, you don't want this thing bending and flexing. You want it nice and steady so you can get a good grip on it and lift it and not have it bend. So like this one, it's never too late. You can go by, and I do it quite often, you can go buy a model and you can look at it and you go, that seems still a bit thin, and you could have been finished the glass weeks ago. You can always go back and add a couple layers quick. I did to this one yesterday. I just didn't like it. It seemed a little bit flimsy to me on the one side. And so I just added a couple more pieces of glass just to reinforce it a bit better. So it's good for picking up. Okay, and the other thing I want to mention is when you get into these bigger ones too, like her and this one here, sorry about the fast camera move, is I change up. Usually I use, you've seen my bolts before and wing nuts, so 1/4 inch. So what I move up to on these ones, I go to like a 5/16 bolt with a couple of washers, one inside, one outside, and a machine nut instead of the wing nuts. It's just that these washers give you more surface area to close up on, like to tighten up. Like when the more weight you get, the more forces there are on the seam, the more forces there are on the rubber seam, and on these seams. So you want to button it up really good. The bigger you get, the more you're going to change your bolt hole patterns. Like on her, you can see how big that rubber flange is, and it's pretty thick. So you're going to want to, there's registry keys running up there about every 6 inches or so. There's registry keys. So you're going to be doubling up bolts in between each of those registry keys. You're going to need a lot, because if you don't, it's going to start popping open on the seams, and then you're going to have problems, and you're going to have a big flange. Just excuse me for one sec. You're going to have, when you demold it, you're going to have a lot of flash, you know what I mean? Like the concrete that seeps in between the seam. A lot of that to clean. I mean, you want to keep that seam tight. And same just with the glass. When you're talking about a lot of weight and you're on the vibrating machine over there, or you're hitting it with a hammer, you want it to be tough. And so that's why I change up when I get to the bigger stuff. I change up to this sort of a method. The small stuff is 1/4 inch bolts. 1 inch with wing nut is just fine. So now I'll just show you what I've got going here. I can't remember last week if he was on the table or not. This is the reclining Buddha. Started last week, or this week. So just a 2-piece on the front. It's got a one big giant, I'll show you. Take that off. There you go. It's got one big giant plug down in here, because there's all kinds of crazy little nooks and crannies in there. So it allows me to get away with just a 2-piece. And on the back side, nothing fancy here, and one small plug is going to go in here. You can see that's an air vent. Way under here is another air vent. Ooh, touch it, boom, right there. Just because I don't want it. I want a good flow to these bottom halves of the arms and the head, so you don't get a lot of bubbles in your finished product. But that'll probably be done by tomorrow, so that'll be off the table. And here's the last two. This was that Birdbath. I'm pretty sure I've showed it before. It's got with a big lily and like a lotus flower sitting in the middle. What all the plaster is for, to cover all the angles, the bad undercuts. Just a little bit of plaster filling. I'm a little apprehensive about this one, but I think it's going to work out okay. It's going to get a wall around it here. So this will be one piece coming out this center, and then there'll be two two separate halves with the bottom flange on here. And here's another familiar looking one if you follow from last year. If you're new, you don't know this one. Ganesh. I've done this one before. Like I said, I did one about exactly the same time last year. So it's going to get 3 plugs. That's why it's all shiny. It's going to get a big plug over here and a big plug over here and one big center plug in the middle. So that makes it easy, so I can just do these half, like a 3-piece, one side, 2 and 3, and the back is just one solid piece. What this is for here is because it's to demarc 2 separate plugs. You don't want them touching when you're getting ready. So just a thin piece of cardboard or whatever you use for your flange stuff, and a little tape on it. So you're going to get 3 separate ones, and they're not joined here because you'd never get that in and out. Okay, gang. So I'm about at that 10-11 minute mark. So I hope that's been good for y'all. And oh, I know, I want to just mention one more thing. We talked about it before, was cutting the glass. I know, like, some guys don't like to cut it. They like to rip it because then you get the rough edges and you get sort of a nicer join on your fiberglass. Like, especially the guy next door, he's a boat guy, so he's ripping off big 5-foot chunks in one piece. But we're not like that. We need smaller pieces. You can't be ripping all these little pieces up. So you can see I've got different size pieces for different tasks, right? So what I mean is like a piece like this is specifically for going on that top flange, right? So just with 2 of these, I can cover, and it's good to have it come and overlap down onto the model, right? So if you've got your other glass on here as well. And then, like, smaller ones are for doing like these, right? So I always have some on hand, all different sizes for different tasks, right? So for these guys here, pieces like this that are going to fit nice in here for these plugs, right? And then some big ones here for the sides. So always have pieces available for what job you're doing, right? So I always look around. I've always got 2, 3, 4 on the go. Take a look and then cut your pieces accordingly to what you're going to need for that job. Just makes life a lot easier when you have it all laid out ready for you. So you're just pre-wetting your glass and chucking it on. So it goes pretty fast when you're all prepped up like that. Okay, everybody, have a great day, and we'll see you next week on Fiberglass Friday. Bye-bye, y'all.